Good evening and welcome to Mental Health Matters After Hours. You'll see the set is slightly different today. We do have a slightly spicier set because we are welcoming sex therapist Madina Demirbas to the show. She is going to be talking to us about how we can have a good sex life, or really what a good sex life actually is. So sit back, enjoy, and let's head over to the main studio. Madina, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Audrey and Judith. Thank you.
It's always so great to have you here because we get to talk to you about naughtier things that we don't get to talk to any of our other guests about, and so that's really exciting. And we've even redone the set for you as well. So that's how special you are.
Thank you.
I'm going to cut straight to the chase. Can you, Madina, define what is a good sex life?
That's a very tricky question indeed, and I would go for good enough sexual life. And by enough, I mean enough in these particular circumstances, the inner circumstances and the outer circumstances. By inner one, I mean your current mental state. If you're struggling with something, if you're going through a difficult period at your job, menopause or other illness, you know, in that conditions, maybe what you're having right now is good enough.
I love that. That's brilliant.
And
takes away the pressure.
Yeah, definitely. Because the last thing you want for good sexual life is the amount of pressure on you and your partner, especially performative pressure. But we will talk about it later. And then the external circumstances, what I would refer like the political situation in the world, the situation again at your work, the situation with your relatives, and so on and so forth. So once you really see these two realities of you and your partner, it will be easier for you to define for yourself what is good enough sexual life for me and for us, because your partner could be in a different erotic space as well.
That's so important to remember, actually, because I think we're so used to these cosmopolitan articles and things, and it's all comparative. And of course, that person who is able to have sex 3 times a day or whatever, they don't have the same internal or external circumstances as you. And so and that may not even be good enough for them,
Definitely.
I love that, which kind of leads me on to the next question, really. Therefore, what might you call not a good enough sex life? So for some people, they just want companionship, and actually they're really, really happy with that. But for maybe one of that partnership, maybe that's not enough, because they don't want to just sit and hold hands. They actually want a bit more intimacy. So can you have a good enough sex life without the sex?
Definitely.
Right.
Because if we define sexual life, which I wanted to mention in the beginning, just by sex, the actual genital sex, then we're really limiting ourselves to a very, very shaky ground that can bring a lot of dissatisfaction and unhappiness and so on. I always invite my clients to broaden the understanding into erotic or sexual well-being rather than just sexual life, because it has this connotation of some kind of performance between two people that are doing it passionately all the time and so on. So if you break it down into like smaller parts, because as we like to say, the beginning of a new sexual act is the end of the previous one. So all this time, all this foreplay, all this anticipation that is building up, and all these preparations, they're all part of this erotic flow, if you would like, or erotic well-being. So answering your question, a bad enough sexual life is disregarding the circumstances, thinking that no matter what, I've got to have it all. My partner's supposed to want it 3 times per day, want me only, preferably, and I don't care what's going on with him, I don't care what's going on with you, it just should happen. So there is this expectation that we will talk about as well, like that it should be spontaneous and without any effort.
Yes.
Exactly. It's the expectation and what am I supposed to, those sort of supposed to be, those kind of words. Like, where does that come from? Because, you know, we don't all sit and watch porn, and so, you know, we don't all rip each other's clothes off all the time. So where do we get that expectation from?
Obviously, you know, it's something that we are brought up with, the cultures, which is requiring you to be the best all the time, no matter what, disregard everything else, just put the smile on and move on and do it, especially for women, because it's seen as obligation and they're being objectified, sadly, very, very often in the marriage, unfortunately, and the husbands would come to me and say, like, what am I supposed to do? She doesn't want it, so I'll just go and, you know, isn't this what marriage is for? Like, to be with her. It's not necessarily about this objectification is not necessarily towards women. It could be towards men as well, in sexual life and in financial sphere as well. But this is just one of the example. So this answering your question, so there is a cultural background, there's also family background of what you are supposed to be everything now for your husband or for your wife, because the dynamics of families have changed as well. Historically, it used to be the families used to live with communities, and you used to satisfy different needs, not necessarily sexual, but different emotional needs with different people from the community. And now you just got the one. Yeah, and now there's a lot of expectation from this one person to be a sexual partner, the best one out of all that you had before. He should be maybe even your business partner in some cases, a good one. He should be a good listener, he should be carer, he should understand, she should be nourishing. A lot of this I hear in my couple sessions, like, this is why I created the family. I want a woman who is waiting for me and longing to hug me. So she's supposed to be this mothering figure as well. And it's all in one person, so no wonder it collapses.
That's really, that's completely changed my outlook. That's really interesting, because I think we do unwittingly put pressure onto our partner
and ourselves as well,
without realizing that actually we can be getting certain nourishment from other places, and probably should be, because our partner may not be great at that particular thing. So I know you've got a question. I just wanted to pull out something that you said earlier. The financial pressure, is that linked to sexual pressure?
Not in all families, unless it is verbally, and many of these processes, unfortunately, are not even verbalized, or the family might not be aware that there's this dynamics that the more you earn, so that, for example, the more I earn, the more I want the sexual attention from my wife, for example, and vice versa. If I'm giving it to you, sort of like, why don't you be a man? It's very complicated, and but I don't know. I'm talking more about the traditional families.
Yes.
But then, even in this country, there are families who are coming from traditional backgrounds, and they're still trying to find their way, which would be semi-traditional, but still work for them. It's they try to navigate different expectations and so on.
So interesting. There's so much behind it. It's not just just that, is it?
There's not just
so
sex.
Much going on.
No, it's never just about sex. I mean,
sorry. Thank you. So how does we have an idea of what a good sex life might be. How does the need for that change over time, and how do we stay in sync with our partner then?
It's interesting when you say sync. It reminds me of an air fryer that we just recently bought, and I have two drawers, and you can press the button and then they will cook some
I love it.
It together.
That's what we think it needs to be.
That's a really good analogy of how it shouldn't be. Love it. Brilliant.
So unfortunately, it doesn't always work like that.
We're not air fryers.
Not yet. Maybe
don't say that.
So really, it could be that if you find yourself in a different erotic space, it could be that you have changed and your preferences might have changed. It's not that you don't want sex, but you want a different type of sex. and a good way, especially for women. I just recently read Want by Gillian Anderson.
Oh.
Yeah. It's a collection of different types of sexual fantasies that she invited people to write, and she was editing it. And it was interesting how you can sort of understand that it's usually the same preferences you thought you had, but this is sort of like broadens your sexual script, and you don't have to realize all of these fantasies, but at least it widens your understanding of what resonates with you. So I genuinely enjoyed it as a sex therapist and as a woman as well. So I recommend it.
Oh wow,
brilliant! And I think
fun to think.
That's also helpful, because hearing other people's experiences, because it's not necessarily the thing you would talk about over dinner, even with your friends, even your close friends. It's nice then to, I guess, going on to the question of staying in sync.
Yes.
It's about recognising people do have this different erotic space, which I love that term. And if that woman feels differently to this woman who feels differently to this woman, then actually you can begin to accept that you may feel differently to your partner and so on.
Yeah, definitely, because the way it was done in the book, they put it in different chapters and different preferences. And it's not just a sexual fantasy, but women do tend to share a little bit of their lives as well. Like, I'm this and this years old, and this is what I'm going through, and you kind of can empathize, or it really, or I have this and this disability, and this is what people think of me sexually, but this is not the case, and so on and so forth.
Wow. Oh my goodness. Well, Madina, you're staying with us. We'll be back just after this.
Words have a huge power and influence in how we interpret the world and our reality. So wording correctly can have a huge impact on how you perceive the life you live and the changes you want to make. So my tip for you today is to replace have to with get to. Now let's say an example. I have to eat healthy becomes I get to eat healthy. I have to exercise becomes I get to exercise. The sense of burden that have to brings is transformed into an opportunity, a privilege. So pay attention to your have to statements today. Try swapping them with get to, and notice how it changes your perspective.
Welcome back to Mental Health Matters After Hours, where we're talking to Madina about how to have a good sex life. How do we stop, Madina, if we don't want to have as much sex as our partner, or the other way around? How do we stop that person feeling rejected?
It's very interesting, because it sounds like you are responsible for the other person's rejection feeling. And it's a shared responsibility. It's always a dynamic between the two. That's why I like to invite both of them. How does this loop start? Because the more the woman or the man, it doesn't have to be specific gender, rejects him or her, the more he feels rejected, the more he chases. There's always a chaser and a rejecter. It could be in sexual life as well, but also emotionally. So there's some kind of a loop that's happening here, and therefore it's the work on both sides. Therefore, so the person who gets rejected should I always ask a simple question: how do you treat masturbation? What's your stance on it? And if especially there's some kind of clash with ego, like why would I have to do it? Why myself, if I'm married? Like, isn't this what marriage is for? But then then you put all of your desire at the mercy of your partner, and then the whole sexual act feels like an obligation for your partner, and therefore it's not anymore about the flow, but it's just about putting the tick in the box and just letting this person finish off and just going to bed, which is the last thing you want for the actual connection that sexual interaction can bring. And sometimes, so what I invite in this kind of cases to do the couples is for it to be an invitation, which I'm feeling playful tonight. Would you like to join me, and so on? And it's okay if you don't.
Yes.
So that kind of a permission really releases the pressure from yourself and from your partner as well. And if your partner says, all right, I'll play along, and then at some point, you know, I don't feel like it. It's all right, it's okay, I can finish off by myself. And it should be seen as a normal progression, which is very rarely the case. So that, you know, that makes you a self-sufficient person in that sense. It's very tricky, I understand. But there is, you know, we were talking about finance and everything, but there is no more sexier person than somebody who is self-sufficient in that sense.
That is true.
Yeah.
That is really true.
That could be one of the ways of navigating it, but of course there could be many other layers. Why the other person is rejecting? Is it a way of saying no to other things? You know, you should always try to what's really going on, because sexual rejection usually is not about sex, or the person who rejects might be in a different, you know, might need longer space, because the research shows that women need more time to get in the mood than men.
Yeah. Okay.
That's true.
So then, to start having the conversations, you've made some suggestions that you may be sort of playful, or
I love that word.
Yeah, exactly. It kind of takes the pressure off again. How else could people start to have the conversations about if they're feeling rejected? Should they talk about where the issues might be rather than in the bedroom?
I recommend, because the topic of sexuality carries so much shame around it, in most of the cultures, even in the families which are, you know, have positive sexual attitude, but still we carry so much shame and sometimes even trauma with it, and just even mentioning about it could be a big trigger for your partner and for yourself. If that's the case, I wouldn't necessarily talk about it straight away, but again, I would invite, even by writing, maybe like a small note, there's something that has been bothering me. Would you like to listen? Would you like to explore this together?
Yeah.
Rather than, right, I'm feeling rejected every single day and I'm sick of it and I want a divorce, you know, which, you know, it's normal to feel sick of it, and it's normal to feel frustrated and everything, but the last thing you want to do is to put another pressure of listening to your problem, and, you know.
I love that as well, an invitation to listen. That's something that I've not really heard like that before. I really love that. So that could be a great place to start.
Easy words to use, playful and listen.
Yeah.
It's just...
you know, it's easier said than done, definitely. And to have this patience, you know, to like, I would like to invite you to talk to me in writing, and then give this person time. And while you're waiting, you might need support. You might need psychotherapeutic support of your friends, because the tension isn't there, the elephant is in the room. You're just, you know, you're just respecting the other person, and you know, you're trying to create a safe space, and sometimes it takes a long time.
Yeah, because I think that relates so much. This whole rejection thing comes with expectations, because if, for example, the woman often, there's a book by Gabor Mate, The Body Says No.
Yeah, I was going to mention that,
which is just such a great book, and there, almost it's the cultural and societal expectation that the woman is going to sacrifice her needs and do all of those things, and it's just absolutely natural. But that feeling of rejection may not be, again, it may not be sexual, it may be because of something completely different, and then you end up feeling rejected, but then linking it to sex instead of it being
because
the other thing.
Sex would be easier, sort of, to point it out. Because it's visible. It's not, you know. The actual people think, like I said, that sex is about the genital interaction, whereas sex life is so much broader than that. This little cues, this little playfulness, little dance around, little hugs, you know, that's all part of.
Whereas the rejection might be that just they don't feel listened to, or they don't, you know, which you can't see tangibly.
Yes.
That
definitely,
makes so much sense.
Always check, like, what's going on with other spheres. I'm yet to see a couple or a family, if it's or a group, if it's a polyamorous group, where everything else is great, and just their sexual life is suffering.
That's really, that's a good thing to know, actually.
Yeah, so it's a really good point.
So linked.
Yes.
It's interlinked with different spheres, and we always look at the broader.
So with that, you were saying earlier that sometimes women in particular need more space and more time to get into that playful or erotic space. I think that's absolutely true. So do men and women, do they really differ in what gets them feeling sexy?
From the book by Nagoski, Come As You Are, it's also... it's a good book about women's sexuality, which has really been understudied for years, for decades, and she really brings it out to us. And look, this is what's happening. So most of men, now we're talking in statistic terms, but most of men's sexuality desire would be spontaneous. Just like, I feel like it, I don't know, it's internal. Whereas women's would be responsive. So they need to be touched, to be talked, to be texted, to be prepared to dinner, a bath, a massage. You know, there needs to be something started for them. Then, as a result, they respond. And both of them are strong. It's not one is weaker than the other, but you have to understand that regarding women, and women should, understand and try to explain it, especially depending on the cycle as well.
Yes.
And the menopause is also there.
Of course, yeah. That kind of brings me to the next question. With the menopause, do our desires change? Because I know with the menopause also there's physical changes which make sex more painful or less desirable as the act.
Yes.
As much as anything else. So
it would differ from woman to woman, but recently Kate Winslet went through testosterone hormone treatment, which she advertised. I think it was about 1 year ago that she advertised it, because her sex drive, according to her, went back to normal thanks to this treatment. However, after I looked into I read the research, it shouldn't be the first choice. So hormonal treatment could be a good way to if there's a loss of desire, and if you would like to bring it back. But it should be as parallel to perhaps some therapy, some community support, some workplace support as well.
That's really, because of course, yes, you're right. Sex is not happening in a vacuum. It is so based on the internal and the external space. That, just coming back to your point right at the beginning. And then what about passionate sex and good sex but doesn't lead to orgasm? Can that be considered good enough?
You see, if there's one thing that I want the listeners to take from this show, is that sex is not just about the actual genital sex, and it's not about the orgasm. Because if you fixate yourself on this performative parts of sex, then it puts it might be a good start. It could be interesting for some people. It's a good turn on, but for most of us who are humans, it puts a lot of pressure. And one thing we know about orgasm, that it happens when your body is relaxed. And the more you can bring this to relaxation and put away the pressure. And I would also suggest to couples to verbally or even writtenly speak it out to each other. We have the permission not to climax. You have the permission, I have the permission. If we don't feel like it, if today is not the day, there's always... Because there should always be space to back off. Like, oh, you know what? It brought up something in me, and can.
That's a really good point.
Because the way having this conversation, you do then look at the sexual space as a very fluid space, not just as I think I've almost been, well, whether it's just brought up or just conditioned to think. It is that the act and move on. Sort of thing.
Because at the end of the day, what matters is what you feel inside, what you feel next to your partner. Do you feel alive? Do you feel playful? Do you want to flirt? Do you want to dance for him, or for her? Is there's this life going on? Because you can have sex 10 times in a day and feel nothing.
Yes.
And that could be, 10 ticks in the 10 boxes, but then it would make you feel empty and lonely.
Yes.
And this is what I hear as well, that people report feeling lonely during the sexual act.
That's really sad, isn't
it? It is.
But again, such an important conversation to have. We're keeping Madina. We'll be back just after this.
Stress is inevitable, but how we handle it makes all the difference. One powerful way to manage stress is by activating the parasympathetic nervous system, your body's natural way of shifting from fight or flight to rest and digest. Now, how do we do that? That's the question. The first technique that I'm going to show you helps you get there. It's the 5-5-5 breathing technique. It's a simple yet powerful tool to calm the body and mind. So inhale for 5 seconds, hold for 5 seconds, and exhale for 5 seconds. You can imagine a triangle in front of you if it helps. Why does it work? It stimulates the parasympathetic nervous system by relaxing the body and promoting rest and digest functions. Also, by reversing the fight or flight response by slowing the heart rate. Also, by lowering your blood pressure and by stimulating digestion when the body is in a relaxed state. Bonus facts. A study found that modulating heart rate oscillation can impact plasma amyloid beta and tau levels in both younger and older adults. What does that mean? It means this technique may even help prevent Alzheimer's. Another technique you can use is to elevate your feet after a long day. When you get home after a stressful day, just put your feet up, literally. The simple act also activates the parasympathetic nerve system, helping you shift into a relaxed state. Beyond the physical benefits, this practice also plays a crucial role in mental health by creating a safe space for relaxation, a moment to reset and recharge. Try one of these techniques today and notice how it changes the way you feel.
Welcome back to Mental Health Matters After Hours, where we're talking to Madina about what makes a good sex life. A really interesting conversation. Talking about flirting, do you think it can ever be harmless if we're in a relationship and there's harmless flirting? Can that be?
Do you think it could be harmful?
That's a question.
Of course, it could.
I think it can be.
Yes.
I think it can be. If you have issues that you haven't discussed and you're using flirting as maybe as a means of testing the water outside that relationship, that it's loaded flirting then.
I think so, yes. I mean, you could say that it's harmless if it just makes you feel better and you have literally no thoughts about taking it any further. But I think you're right. I think flirting is about testing the water. Yeah, definitely.
So you think that thoughts about another person while you have your partner could be very harmful?
Could be. It depends. Yes.
Interesting. I think it's very cultural as well, the definition of flirting. In Western cultures, it's more of like talking. It's more verbal. It's more through direct eye contact and making compliments and stuff like that. Whereas in Eastern cultures, it's more about just looking, that would be considered flirting or something much subtle.
Wow, that's
so I think we should take that into account. And again, like I mentioned, the families that are coming from Eastern culture into the West and Western into the East, and how do they settle? Because for somebody, if a Western person goes to East and starts flirting with each other, with everybody, he or she would be considered as rude.
I can see that.
Yeah.
And in some
as harmful.
Yeah.
And like, how dare you're married, how dare you talk like that to my wife or to my, sister and stuff like that. Whereas in West, it again, which part of the West and which part of the UK we're talking to, more or less conservative parts. But it really, this is one of the very interesting topics about flirting and whether it is actually harmful or harmless and even helpful for sexual life. It will vary. The thing about long-term couples that we know for sure that this sparkle and this desire to flirt fades over time, and then you need to find other sort of sources of inspiration. Now, if you are going out somewhere flirting, knowing what you want, that you're not like testing the water, but you are
looking for attention,
re-establishing your sense of who you are outside of this marriage, because this is important. After a while, we tend to blend with our partner and see ourselves only as wife or husband, and this is great for intimacy and for friendship and being close. But if you want to sparkle that part, the sexual part, you need to feel yourself separate from your partner. And flirting is a good way. It's like, oh, they're interested. Good to know. All right, I come back.
Yes.
But it, of course, I mean, what I believe, to answer shortly, if you suppress this desire to flirt and sort of to test the water and see for yourself, it will burst out on you. And that's when we have the extramarital affairs that I don't know how it happened. I didn't see it coming. And so I suggest like the small dosages, if you feel like it, if you're inclined to flirt, if you're a flirtatious person.
Yeah, you can't then suppress that.
No, and some people flirt with their friends, and there's absolutely nothing in it. I suppose it's the intention behind it, like you say. It's a really difficult one. So, kind of taking that a bit further, then, if you're with a partner but you're thinking about somebody else,
like really thinking about
them, and kind of in your mind where that could go, sexually. Then should you really be with your partner? And on the other hand, should you then just kind of suppress that side and just think, oh well, I'm with him, I just need to stay comfortable with this person? And
that's a good
can you suppress?
Exactly. So it's hard, because what if you don't actually flirt but you're just constantly thinking about somebody and you think, well, there might be something.
You see, again, we're coming back to this point that sexuality is about feeling independent. That you love this person and everything, but at the same time you're a free human being, and at least in your imagination and in your fantasies, you allow yourself to go as far as you can. I often invite my clients to go all the way till the end. So you're thinking about that person. What exactly do you think? What happens then? And then what? And they're like, oh my God, I'm so afraid it's going to happen. Wait, it's not happening. It's still in your head. But once you live through this fantasy, it gets validated, and you see that very often our sexual fantasies are very good clues to understand our emotional needs. So by listening yourself till the end, what do you actually want from this person that you are obsessed with? Actually, I want him to say that you're the best woman in the world and the best partner, whatever. Now you get to understand. So it could be a clue. I'm not saying it's easy. That's for sure. It could be you could really get obsessed. It could get years. And some people, let's admit that they're attractive. And as much as we love our partners, we just sit there and like totally fancy them. But as long as we allow ourselves at least to do it in our head, then it gives us the choice. Do I actually want this to happen or not? Because what differs us from serial killers and maniacs, they usually don't. I know. I hope it differs us. They lack the fantasy part. So before they kill, they don't necessarily fantasize about it. They just do it. They just act upon whatever, the impulse that they have. We, hopefully normal people, we have this capacity to live through our fantasy and then to decide, do I want to act upon it? Do I want to go partially? Or no, actually doesn't suit me, you know, because once the person, I had clients who said, I want to go for it. You know, I know what I'm losing. I know what is at stake, but I want to go for it. So, and then I just bring back the responsibility, you know, if you're aware of what is at stake, then it's up to you.
The act of actually playing it through to the end, because I think if I were to do that, you then kind of go, oh, we'd just be in the same position as I am right now, so, just with a new person. Great. So I think it's revealing, and I think that's really that. I love that point.
Exactly. Can I just ask as well? So when you said if you take it through to the end, and actually all you might want is for that person in your mind that you're thinking about to say, I think you're amazing, like the best person ever. Do you think that that's then a symptom about an issue in the actual relationship that you have? That you want that person to tell you that, really? You want your partner to say that?
It could be, and it also could be the sign of many things. Your partner could be, you know, there's only so much that your partner can tell you how beautiful and how great and how amazing you are, and that some partners don't do it for sure. And you know, some things I told you 10 years ago, why should I repeat it? I love you.
Yep.
You know, like, of course you're beautiful. Like, what's your problem?
I might remember that in 2012 that he might have said that. Yeah.
But then it could also be a sign of loneliness in general. Like I said, of a need for a wider community. Some of us are more flirtatious, they're more, you know, talkative, they're more into this playfulness. It's just the way they are. It's the type. They have high sexual energy, if you like to call it this way. And if this type of people suppress it and think that this is wrong and that's going to lead to this and that, they can sort of like freeze themselves, but they will freeze themselves against their partner as well. Yeah. So you need to get this flow going. It's very complicated, and you know.
Really I think you're describing it really well. Yeah. So kind of going to basic psychology now. Our attachment styles. We talk a lot about having secure attachments with our parents, insecure attachments, avoidant attachments. How does that impact our relationships?
It always does.
Yeah.
The bad news. Just the bottom line here is whether your current relationship is re-traumatizing you, bringing you back into this space where you were being avoided and you were the chaser and the other one is avoider, or does it actually heal you? Yeah. So are you reproducing what actually was hurting you, or do you have the relationship where you can heal? That's the first part, emotionally. The second part, in sex, it works in another way. It works a different way. It could be that our trauma, specifically our trauma of avoidance, could be a good resource for the sexual script that actually turns you on. And in this particular sphere, you could be really shocked. And for a long time, my clients would say, there is no way, but I hate this in real life, but in sex it really turns me on. And the reason is because here you've got the agency, you decide. So I choose to be avoided by you, I choose to be treated, I choose to be objectified, obviously in a safe place. It has to be
with conversation and consent.
Absolutely, with consent and everything. But all out of a sudden, then this person can actually get healed through the sexual experience of being avoided or being chased.
I love that because of the choice. But then that makes a lot of sense because of the way that other third wave therapies like NLP, they all work by replacing that memory and being able to explore what that trauma was in the first place. And then what you're doing is you're doing that with your partner. I think that's really healthy. So now, sort of kind of basic questions. What if one person wants to use sex toys and the other one isn't quite so keen?
When there's this yes or no question, I want to use it and you don't want to use it. But I always invite the couple to answer, what does it mean to you?
Yeah.
Because when there's, this polarization of I don't want to use it and I want to use it and you're a bad person, I'm a good person, there's no common ground.
Yeah.
It's just they tend to get further and further apart from each other. But once they talk about the meaning, it's not just the sex toys. It could be anything. Bring the third person in, or go and do this, that. What would it mean to you to use the sex toys?
Yeah.
It would mean that I'm a free, free soul who likes the experiments. That's the meaning. Oh, actually, this is the experience that I want for myself as well, but not through the toys. This is how I would want it.
Yeah.
That could be a possibility. Or another thing with these yes or no questions is to usually, if there is no answer to them, the answer is in the middle. Yes, and with these conditions. No, and this with these conditions.
That's, again, really important. We focus this show pretty much on heterosexual relationships, but a lot of what you say can be transferable. But are there sort of specific or different needs we need to consider when you are supporting LGBTQ plus relationships?
Yes, and one of the most common patterns that I see is additional layer of shame. So there is usually shame around, around sex topic in general, but there is extra layer of shame in LGBTQ community over the sexuality, and I'm really interested to see how this shame is being dealt with. Is it being suppressed? Is it being accepted by the other partner? I understand how it feels. It's not always the case. Sometimes it's interesting how I watch, just get over it. Look at me, I got over it, and I'm fine. Just go. Just come out to your grandma. What's the problem here? So that's one of the things. Also for transgender and non-binary, it could be a different, different feeling in the body that also is important to address in the relationship. Being comfortable with your sexuality and with your body.
Yeah. Which kind of brings me to the last question about being comfortable. The asexual being, the person who just is perfectly content without sex, is that healthy?
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
Simple.
As long as it's communicated, as long as it's understood, and as long as both of the partner understands where what's happening. Actually, that is nothing personal, and that this is how the person is.
Well, we're keeping Madina, and we'll be back just after Test the Trend. I teach burlesque. I'm a burlesque instructor because what I want to do is to get you to embrace your body for what it does, not just for what it looks like, but also burlesque encourages a sense of touch, which some of my ladies may not even get without it being in a medical context. And so we encourage a lot of touch of the body, we encourage a lot of sass, and we encourage a lot of confidence. And burlesque is a safe space where you can just be whoever it is you want to be. Now, burlesque is going to be different depending on whereabouts you're learning it. In my case, I teach a new routine every week. In some classes, what they do is they build up one routine all the time, and then they do their performance, and you're welcome to wear corsets and fishnets and suspenders and whatever it is that makes you feel really sexy. With my class, you're allowed to dress up however you wish. You can come dressed for a fitness exercise class if you want to, or you can dress in theme with the dance. So one thing I would say about burlesque, if you're deciding to start or not, there are many types. You can have your straightforward burlesque. You can have chair dancing as well. That can be a bit more athletic. We use chairs, but not in the same way as a burlesque chair dance does. So what I would suggest you do is, if you are interested, go and find out from the community centres or wherever it is that you might see burlesque classes advertised. See if you can sit in on a class and see whether you like it, but also work out whether you like the style of instruction or not, or whether there's variations in terms of the steps. So do your research beforehand. And if you want a little bit of extra inspiration, I'm very proud to introduce my burlesque dancers in one of their performances. So let's take it away, ladies. Welcome back to Mental Health Matters After Hours. This has been such an eye-opening show, and we're so grateful to you, Madina. It's there are so many things to reflect on and talk about, and I think one of the biggest things for me is to recognise that sex is not just about the act of genitals touching. It is so much broader than that, and it comes with internal and external expectations, and it's only when we really understand all of those that we can really understand, I guess, how to have a good enough or a healthy sex life for ourselves. And that just is really important, and that's just changed so much from my perspective. What about you, Jude?
Exactly the same. That's the biggest thing that's come out of this conversation. I mean, there's been lots of things, but just that if there's issues in a couple or a polyamorous relationship's sex life, then it's not really about sex. It's about other things, and that's really shifted my perception on the whole subject, really. And the other thing, as I said, I love the fact that you sort of said that one partner could invite the other to listen to how they're feeling about something, and it just, as you say, is kind of a gentle way to start talking rather than getting upset and just saying, I really, this is how I'm feeling. It's a really lovely way to start a discussion. So those two things kind of came out for me.
And the word playful as well, related to that. I love that.
Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant. And for me, what I liked was the 2 points about flirting, one of them, and then the attachment styles, how that actually that act, when you explore it and talk about it, can become a healing act in both ways. So the flirting can reveal what it is you're perhaps missing in your current relationship, and the avoidance or anxious attachment style, if you then put a choice onto it, it becomes a lot more empowering. So that's absolutely brilliant. So Madina, we're going to hand it over to you. Can you give us your top tips for a good enough sex life, please?
I'll quote Dan Savage, the American sex therapist, and he invites, so he says the rule of, please use the rule of 3 Gs, which is good, giving, and game. And I'll explain what it is. So good, it means that try to be good in sex, try to understand yourself, your partner's sexuality, what do they prefer in this time, that time, try to really become sort of an expert in this field. Then by giving is thinking more about your partner than yourself. Be generous in terms of not just the sexual act, but be generous in terms of compliments, in terms of making the person feeling seen, because this is usually at the core of the sexuality. And by game, he says, be open to new experiences. Now, that's a tricky part, because every couple would have different, new ideas that they want to try, and the other person might not even think about it. But he invites for the rule of first timers. So give it just a try, or try to variation of it and see how it goes. So be open for it, and that's what hopefully will keep your sexual life alive, because that's all that matters.
Oh, Madina, I mean, you can watch this woman's TEDx talk, so you do go and look at that as well. Where can we find you and learn more about you?
So it's my website. It's Madina Demirbas.com. But also, if you just Google Madina Sex Therapist, it's the first thing that you will see, my Facebook and my Instagram and all other social media.
Amazing. It's really been such a pleasure speaking with you.
It really has.
It's a big honor for me to talk to you.
You need to be back on the show really soon. And to everybody, have a good night and a healthy, good enough sex life.